We got Roscoe when my son was 17. I want to say that because it matters. People imagine a young child when they picture a neurodivergent kid with a dog. Small, easily redirected, manageable in scale. My son at 17 was none of those things. He was a teenager, a big one, and he moved through the world the way a lot of autistic people do, with heavy hands, heavy feet, no real sense of how much force he was using until it had already been used. His voice is either loud or almost inaudible. There's very little in between. When he's happy and engaged, he's loud. When he's frustrated, he's loud in a different way, sharper, and his body changes with it. The movement becomes choppy, erratic, like a signal breaking up. It doesn't look like anger to me anymore, not after all these years. But I had to ask myself something. Once Roscoe was in the house and I started paying attention, what did my son's body look like from Roscoe's perspective? This is Under the Same Roof. I'm Jennifer Tan, certified family dog mediator and professional dog trainer, and this is episode 4. We've spent the first 3 episodes looking at our dog's behavior from the outside. The reactive episode, the apparent regression, the context dependence of skills we thought were solid. We've been building a picture of how learning and stress work in a nervous system that isn't neurotypical. This episode, I want to shift the perspective entirely. Not what our dogs are doing, what they are experiencing. Specifically, what it is like to be a dog inside a home where a neurodivergent family member is also navigating the world. Because I think we talk a lot about how to manage the dog in these households. And we talk a lot about how to support the child. But almost nobody is asking, what is it actually like to be Roscoe in my house? What is he living through on a hard day when nobody is watching him closely enough to notice? That's what I want to get into today. Dogs are sensory animals living in a sensory world. They track movement, sound, smell, tone, posture, constantly, involuntarily, because that's what their nervous system is built to do. Unpredictable movement isn't just surprising to them. It's data. It says, something is happening that I cannot predict. I don't know what comes next. And a nervous system that can't predict what comes next is a nervous system that stays on alert. My son wasn't trying to be unpredictable. He wasn't doing anything wrong. The heaviness in his hands when he reached for Roscoe wasn't carelessness. It's simply how he's wired, how he experiences his own body in space. His voice at full volume wasn't aggression. It's just where his volume dial tends to sit. And when he got frustrated and his movement went choppy and sharp, that wasn't a threat. It was his nervous system doing what it does. But Roscoe didn't know any of that. Roscoe just knew what he was sensing. A large, unpredictable presence that was sometimes gentle and sometimes sudden. A voice that spiked without warning. A body that shifted in ways that were hard to read. All of that was going into Roscoe's stress bucket. Sometimes a little at a time. Sometimes quite a lot at once, whether or not anyone in the room was tracking it. I was often not tracking it. I was tracking my son. There's a version of this conversation that becomes about managing the teenager or managing the dog, and I want to be careful not to go there, because that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that both of them were navigating something real, and only one of them had anyone paying close attention to how he was doing. Roscoe communicates stress the way most dogs do, in a language that's easy to miss if you haven't learned to look for it. He yawns when he's not tired. He does a full body shake-off when nothing has gotten him wet. He licks his lips. He repositions himself, just slightly, just barely out of easy reach. He leaves the room. That last one is the one I started noticing first. He'd be settled somewhere, and then my son would come in, not doing anything dramatic, just entering in that way he has, heavy-footed, maybe mid-conversation with himself or with me, voice carrying, and Roscoe would quietly get up and go somewhere else. Not dramatically, not cowering, just choosing a different space. I knew what it meant by then. He was telling me, in the only way he had, I need a bit less of this right now. The problem is that a dog who keeps choosing a different room day after day in response to a family member is a dog who is managing chronic low-grade stress. And chronic low-grade stress doesn't always look like a dog in crisis. Sometimes it looks like a dog who is just a little more tense than he used to be, a little slower to settle, a little quicker to startle. You don't always see it building until something tips. This is one of the things I tackle with families to look at in a behavioral and wellness assessment. Not just the dramatic moments, but the pattern of small withdrawals, the repositioning, the shake-offs, the way a dog has quietly organized his day around avoiding a particular person, not out of fear exactly, but out of the kind of low-level self-preservation that kicks in when something consistently costs more than it gives back. It's not the dog's fault. It's not the family member's fault. It's a mismatch that nobody designed and nobody meant to create. But it's real, and it has a cost. I also had to reckon honestly with the physical side of it. My son's hands are not gentle by default. He has to think about being gentle, consciously, deliberately, in a way that a lot of people don't. When he pets Roscoe without that conscious thought running, it's heavier than Roscoe wants. And Roscoe, to his credit, has learned to say so. He moves away. He turns his head. He does the small things that mean, that's enough. But a dog who keeps having to say, that's enough, is a dog who is working harder than he should have to in his own home. This is not about blame. I want to say that clearly because I mean it. My son loves Roscoe. That is not in question, but love doesn't automatically translate into the physical regulation that most dogs need from the humans they live with. And for some people, that regulation is genuinely hard. It requires effort and attention that a dysregulated nervous system doesn't always have available. So the gap has to be filled somewhere else. And that somewhere else is me. This is the part that doesn't get talked about enough in conversations about dogs and neurodivergent families. Someone in the house has to be the dog's advocate. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that sets one family member's needs against another's, just in the quiet, consistent way of a person who is watching, who notices when Roscoe has moved to the far side of the condo and understands why, who makes sure there is always a space he can go that is genuinely his, who steps in when an interaction needs to end before Roscoe has to say so himself. This is, in a real sense, what family dog mediation is about. Not training the dog into tolerating more, not teaching him to override his own stress signals, but understanding what he needs to feel okay, and making sure those things exist in the household, even when the household is a lot. For Roscoe, practically, that has meant a space that is always his, and that my son has learned over time to respect. Decompression walks that are genuinely decompression, slow, led by his nose, not asking anything of him. A predictable rhythm to the day so he can anticipate what's coming, even when other things around him aren't predictable. And me, paying attention. Not constantly, but enough. My son has grown into understanding Roscoe better than I expected, honestly. It took time, and it took me explaining things in ways that actually made sense to him, not be gentle as an abstract instruction, but specific and concrete. Put your hand out. Let him come to you. Watch where his head goes. He can do it. He just needs the explicit version, not the assumed one, which, if you've been listening to this series, will sound familiar. The same principle that applies to teaching skills to a neurodivergent child applies here. Break it down. Be specific. Make the invisible visible. Don't assume they know what gentle looks like. Show them what it looks like. Give them something concrete to aim for. And then give them the time to build the habit. Because building a conscious habit takes much longer than doing something that comes automatically. That's not a character flaw. It's just how learning works, when something doesn't come naturally. Both of them are doing their best with the wiring they have. That's the thing I keep coming back to in this work and in this family. My son's heavy hands and his too loud voice and his choppy, erratic movement when frustration hits. None of that is a choice. It's his nervous system doing what it does. And Roscoe's retreat to the far room, his lip lick, his quiet preference for the space where things are a little less unpredictable, none of that is a behavior problem. It's his nervous system doing what it does. The question is never which one of them needs to change. The question is what understanding looks like when you're holding both of them at once. Most of the time, for us, it looks like paying attention, noticing when the bucket is getting full before it tips, making sure there's always somewhere quiet to land. That's not a perfect system. Some days are harder than others, but I've learned from both of them that perfect was never the point anyway. The point is to keep asking, what do you need today? And then actually listening for the answer in whatever form it comes. Next episode, I want to stay right here, inside this household, but zoom out to the hardest version of this scenario. What happens when both of them are dysregulated at the same time? When your dog is over threshold and your child is melting down and you are standing in the middle of the condo, trying to figure out who needs you first? That's what we're getting into next time. Two nervous systems, one house. I'm Jennifer Tan. This is Under the Same Roof. Understanding before strategies, always.